All right, today got me a little fascinated with hillsides and slopes, particularly disturbed slopes. I'm out here in a canyon in Northern California, basically at the foothills of the Sierra Nevada. I don't know if you went to school in California, you probably heard the Sierra Nevada. That's where all them big ass mountains are towards the east. Anyway, so I'm walking on this old trail, or it's this old road actually. It used to be a road to lead up to some gold mines that were way up the canyon. And this old road was obviously disturbed by probably machine equipment way back in the day, over 100 years ago, during the gold rush era. And as you can imagine, they took that equipment and they kind of scarred the landscape putting in this road. But what's happened over the years, as you can see here, you got life essentially bouncing back, kind of taking advantage of all these disturbed areas. And a lot of the rock here it's pretty old. Like, you go up to the top of the canyon up there in the hills, and somewhere way up there, you have Jurassic to Triassic period soils, marine soils that used to be underwater however many million years ago, less than 100 million years ago. And a lot of the plants back then, they didn't have no flowers. Most of the plants out there were plants known as non-vascular plants. And that's basically what we're seeing here on the side of this disturbed slope. So we have these things called bryophytes. And these bryophytes are non-vascular plants, meaning they don't really have a body mechanism, if you will, that would transport water up and through their tissue. They just kind of absorb the water, you know, kind of straight from the environment. They have little spores instead of seeds, and in many cases those spores can actually swim. They could actually, you know, they're motile. That's the word, motile. And those spores can kind of swim to another location where it can propagate. That's one species, that's another species, you got another species, possibly another species. That's about 4 or 5 species already. And amongst these bryophytes, we also have these things right here. This is just one of them. This is a lichen. Here we got another lichen right here, another species of lichen. And lichens are a symbiosis of some type of fungus and either some type of cyanobacteria or an algae. So they basically form a partnership that allows them to survive as their own separate species. You know what I'm saying? So right here, these lichens are basically 2 species of organism in one, functioning as one. Now here we got another lichen right here. Look at this red lichen. And see, look at the microclimate that it's in. So this here in Northern California, you got this little spot of scarred soil that is basically kind of covered, shaded. Amongst the shade, we're shaded right here, but even here it's even shaded more. Yet you have these things, which I think is another lichen. And you see how they're colored red? So they use a different wavelength of light to either photosynthesize so it can get its food. So I think this is a lichen right here. It's got to be a lichen. If it's not a lichen, it's some type of fungus, which is basically half a lichen. Oh, we got another example of a different type of non-vascular plant. I think these are called liverworts. Another group of plants separate from bryophytes, separate from mosses. Liverworts. These are pretty cool. So away from the non-vascular plants, we also got some vascular plants in here too. These are ferns right here in the Terra. I forget the group that they're in. But ferns. One of the first vascular plants to appear on this earth. And when I mean vascular, I mean they have tubes similar to arteries and veins and capillaries that allow them to grab moisture from in the soil and bring it up to the rest of the plant. So these guys right here can actually grow taller because of that vascular system. It's a transport system to transport water from the roots up into the rest of the plant. Now, ferns don't have seeds either. They have spores too. They have things called sori, which are those right there. All those little spores right there, that's the reproductive portion of a fern. And all ferns have this. And that's what it uses to propagate. That's what it uses to kind of spread its seed, even though it doesn't have seed. Moving on to more vascular plants, we have this right here. Now I know this is in the family Crassulaceae, or the Stonecrop family. This is a type of Angiosperm for sure. It's a flowering plant. Stonecrops are plants that are pretty well suited. They got a good, strong phenotype that allows them to also take advantage of disturbed cliff sides, disturbed slopes, stuff like that. These are pretty cool when they flower. They usually have some kind of long flower on a stalk. This is a true vascular plant, and I think these are considered, what do they call them, succulents. Real succulent leaves, you know, in this rosette pattern right here. Oh, and we got a monocot right here too. I don't know what this is. This might be some kind of onion, and it's too early to tell because it's not flowering. But this is a monocot right here, and the way I can tell it's a monocot is because you look at the venation and it's parallel to each other. Whereas you got this dicot right here, where you see those veins kind of bifurcate. They vein out basically. It's crazy. It's another species right there. Look at all this diversity. And this is true diversity right here, you know? But other than diversity, I think what people really mean to say is species richness, right? So species richness is basically the number of species that you got in a given spot. Diversity takes into account the number of species plus evenness. So the proportions of each species compared to each other within a given area. So right here you have species of bryophytes, all these different bryophytes. You got these liverworts right here. You got vascular plants, non-vascular plants, more highly evolved, so to speak, plants, all taking advantage of this slope that was disturbed over 100 years ago. And it's growing back, taking it over, and basically stabilizing everything too. You know, a lot of these plants, as water runs through, it brings nutrients. These plants will trap these nutrients in to this face right here, this face of this land right here, this face of this slope basically. To me, that's a happy ending. That's a happy ending to a story of what happened here. You know, you have this disturbed road that cut through hundreds of years ago. And then you have these plants, and primitive plants at that, plants that have been on this earth for hundreds of millions of years. They basically have the equipment, the genetic equipment to live in this type of habitat. Now, naturally, this disturbance might occur from landslides, rock slides, and stuff like this. But in this case, it seems to have occurred by humans, anthropogenic human disturbance. And naturally is what these bryophytes, liverworts, and lichens do. You know, they take over shit like this. And when left alone, you get a wonderful diversity of organisms here. I don't care what anybody say. To me, that shit is hard. The story of evolution all in about 5 square meters right there.